Now let's talk about graphing polynomial functions. So the first thing we want to do if we have an actual polynomial and we want to graph it is determine the end behavior, because that's going to tell us what the general shape of the function looks like and which direction arrows are pointing. And then we want to make just an XY table and plot a few points that are close to 0 to figure out a little more accurately where our graph is going to be. So again, we will start with identifying our degree, which for this is 3, which is an odd number. And our leading coefficient is the number in the front of that term. We have a negative, but that would be a -1. So we have a negative leading coefficient. Negative leading coefficient tells us that the right arrow is going down. And the fact that our degree is odd tells us that the left one is going opposite. So that's generally what we're going to see on our graph, but now we want to be more specific and get some actual points plotted. So I'm going to create an XY chart and just pick a few points, start with 0 and then go maybe a couple points either side of 0 until I feel like I've got enough to get a good idea. So if I have x of 0, I can plug in 0 everywhere that I see x in this polynomial. So right here, a 0 is going to make that term 0. This term, also 0, also 0. So the only thing I have left is -3. So y is -3. Let's go ahead and plot the point x being 1. If I plug in an x of 1 here, I'm going to get a -1 and a +1, a 3 and a -3. So we actually have positive and -1 cancel, positive and -3 cancel, so I'm left with 0 for y. Let's go ahead and plot those couple points so that we can start to see what our graph is looking like. So we know we have a point here, and we know we have a point at 1, 0. I'm going to go ahead and do another point at 2, because right now I can see that I am increasing. I want to figure out when I start decreasing, because sometime we have to start heading towards -infinity. So let's go ahead and plot when x is 2. And feel free to use your calculator for this or the scientific calculator on Desmos if you need it and don't want to try to do the math in your head. So I'm going to plug in 2 everywhere I see x. So 2 to the 3rd power is 8, but it's going to be negative. So I have a -8 there. I have 2 squared here, so that's a +4. -8 and +4, we're at a -4 now. 3 times 2 is a +6. -4 and +6 is going to give me a +2. And then subtract 3, -1. Aha. So we have started going the other direction somewhere here between an x value of 1 and an x value of 2, because we were going up between 0 and 1, and now we're going back down. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But now that we have a point that's going down, we can stop on that side. So again, at 2, we are at -1. Let's go ahead and go the other way. Let's say -1 plugged in here. So -1 cubed is going to give me -1, and then a negative sign on that is going to make it positive. So we have a +1 for our first term. -1 squared is also a +1, so now we're up to +2. 3 times -1 is -3. So +2, -3, -1. And then subtract 3 from that. We're going to be down at -4. So -4 when we're at -1. So we can see that we are still decreasing there. We want to find where we start to increase. We know that we have to eventually start increasing because this left arrow is going up. All right, so let's continue until we get numbers that are going up from there. So at negative 2, if I have a negative 2, that's going to be a negative 8 when I cube it, but then I have a negative sign here, so that's going to be a positive 8. I'll have a positive 8 and a positive 4, so we're up to 12. And now I'm going to subtract 6 from that. So 12 minus 6 is positive 6, and then minus 3 gives me a positive 3. So at negative 2, we are up at positive 3. So we jumped pretty quickly. We have a pretty steep curve there somewhere. All right. So let's use this to start sketching. We know that on the left, our arrow is pointing up, so we can kind of go up from that dot. We know that on the right-hand side, we're going down. So from this furthest right point, I can draw an arrow headed down. Now I just kind of draw a smooth curve to connect the rest of the dots. And so I'm going to do my best here. Mine may be a little different looking than yours, but let's try to hit all of those points as we go through. So something like that. Remember that a third degree function is going to have those 2 bumps on it.